What's going on, Soul Tribe? I salute the divinity in you, and welcome to my channel, Alchemist. Justin here, and bring another little nugget to add to the Soul Tribe archive. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about Mars and Cancer in the 7th house. Look at Mars. Having a little bit of trouble. But when we talk about Mars, the nature of Mars is to energize. Mars calls us to action. Can be how we express our passions. Mars is that will to be alive. Mars really does play an important part. It's not now. Mars is also can be a bit combative. Mars is hot and dry in nature, and so there's this inflammatory that the agitation that can come with Mars. There's some tough things with Mars too. Mars is known as the lesser malefic in traditional astrology. So it was one that you kind of have to keep an eye on, especially if you have a day chart. Mars can be a bit harder to work with, whereas when the night chart, you can work real constructively with Mars. So that's just some things to think about with him. And then we have Cancer. Cancer is the cardinal water sign. They are feminine in nature, so there's this receptivity. They deal with the emotions, and the cardinals are the initiator. So that's where emotions first start. They're ruled by the moon, and so the emotions fluctuate. Cancer is a very sensitive sign, but very intuitive, very psychic type of energy, very empathic in sense, nurturing energy when it comes to Cancer. And then we have the 7th house. The 7th house is a strong house, is one of the angular houses. And some of the themes that the 7th house covers can be marriage. It can be about just one-on-one relationships, whether that be between a teacher and a student, a therapist and a patient, or this could be, interestingly enough, this could be about living abroad. But also when it comes to relationship, it's not just the friendly ones that we have, but even the enemies that we can potentially have as well. And that's a tricky, we'll talk about that a little bit more with Mars. But when you combine all of these things, a couple of things you want to look for. One, of course, look to see where the moon is, because that moon is going to be in charge of that house, and seeing how it witnesses Mars, or does she not witness Mars at all, and Mars is just going crazy. So that's something to pay attention to. Also, Mars is going to be in charge of that house of like your family, your parents, where where your foundations, and also of your friends. Yes, because you would have by whole sign have a Capricorn rising, and yes, and another thing to think about or to consider in this is that this is where Mars experiences his fall. And so when planets are in fall, the thing with them is that they have this potential to literally kind of fall into their kind of lower expressions. But the nice kind of thing, this is a tricky place for Mars to be, because where Mars may not be in the best sign, he's in a good house. So one thing that I would talk to you about with this person is definitely how are your relationships, and not just in just like a basic kind of way. How do your relationships fuel you? Do you notice that you have some that really kind of raise your energy level up, that really keep you motivated? Like maybe you have that teacher that just kind of keeps you inspired, or do you notice relationships that kind of drain you? And keep it on fact. When we're talking about the 7th house, it takes two to tango. So you have to see how you are contributing. Are you one that maybe tends to drain the energy? Are you one that is uplifting the energy? And understanding the fluctuations of that, because again, this is the house that's going to be ruled by the moon. So there's going to be days where you're feeling it and where you're not. And I think that a positive expression of this Mars in Cancer can be one that just instinctually knows how to respond to certain situations, where it's like, you know what, I'm feeling a lot over here. I think I'm going to give that person space. Or you know what, I'm noticing that this brings this thing here. I'm going to cut this off. Or, I'm noticing this thing and I want to encourage more relationships along those lines. There can be a real kind of, and it takes, of course, a little bit, I think, some effort with this. And this is going to be learning through those relationships. But I think that Mars can be he can be a great leader, and I think that a leader that knows how to feel the room out is a very powerful tool to have. Now, another thing that I would think about, again, just pay attention to just like the emotional themes that come up. If you notice that there are a lot of the relationships maybe that you attract, there's a lot of anger, or maybe there's a lot of this manipulation or something along those lines. You're there, that Mars is here to learn through others. So that's going to be something where can get a lot of valuable insight, and pay attention to what you're feeling, and be mindful of, especially I think if you have Mars retrograde in your chart, that would be, I pay attention to just like any sort of like real reactiveness, because remember that seventh house deals with enemies too, and it can be hard if you have that trouble making that first impression, or maybe if there's just like real kind of combativeness that goes on. Like Mars is the one, and I think in Cancer that'll get him in trouble, because it's something that he's just responding to a feeling in the moment, and feelings change. So this could be learning where, and if this is something where you've noticed that like either you have issues with it, maybe like anger or things like that, or maybe if someone else happens to be maybe working with someone, and if this is like a partner, then maybe getting in like sort of like a couples counseling, or maybe there's like a depression or whatever that might, a lot of anxiety, whatever that is. But know that there are ways of working with this Mars, however this comes up for you. And sometimes it does take, it takes an outside perspective to get a true view of who we are. We can only understand so much of ourselves. Other people will have different perspectives and things. So I think those are just some pretty general things that I would talk about. And of course, the rest of the chart is going to kind of see what kind of aspects are forming with Mars. Those are going to be something that could be very beneficial, because maybe you got Jupiter in Cancer as well. So that could be, that would do some, Jupiter would help out a lot with that. But maybe Saturn's there, and Saturn might, they might team up, and it'd be, challenges. But definitely something to just kind of pay attention to. And if you're wanting to get a little bit more deeper into how you can work with these placements, down in the description box below is a link for all the services that I provide. And also, especially if you do have Mars in Cancer, any sort of Cancer placements, also down in the description box is a link for my other channel, The Chariot Friends, which I discuss everything that deals with the moon, and when she's changing signs, when she happens to go void of course, and the different phases that she's in, the different, so if that's something that resonates with you, all that information is down in the description box. But until next time, stay mindful out there, keep raising that vibration through the roof, and I will catch you on the next one. Later.